Imagine a world where the most crucial truth, the signal that could save thousands of lives, hides not in the cold logic of technology, but in the silent wisdom of the sea itself. On the morning of December 26, 2004, the world's most powerful seismic sensors registered a tremor so immense it would eventually unleash one of the deadliest tsunamis in recorded history. Governments and international organizations scrambled, but for most, the warning came too late. The waves would claim over 230,000 lives across 14 countries. But in the heart of the Andaman Sea, an ancient nomadic people survived. The Moken, often called sea gypsies, lived in the direct path of the oncoming wave. They had no access to news reports, no satellite imagery, no official warnings. They had only their knowledge, passed down for generations. Yet, with a speed and certainty that defied logic, they escaped to high ground. How did a community with no modern technology see what the rest of the world missed? Did an unseen signal, a forgotten frequency, reach them before anyone else? This is the story of the heroic rescue nobody saw, a story that rewrites what we consider a warning and challenges us to look beyond the obvious, to listen for the echoes of an unseen truth. To understand the Moken's remarkable survival, we must first understand their world. For centuries, they have navigated the crystalline waters and secluded islands of the Andaman Sea, living a nomadic life entirely dependent on the ocean. Their homes were their boats, their survival tied to the rhythms of the tides, the whispers of the wind, and the behavior of the creatures beneath the surface. They were not just inhabitants of the sea, they were a living extension of it. The Moken's oral traditions, their myths and stories, were more than folklore. They were a meticulously curated archive of knowledge, a survival manual encoded in tales of spirits, storms, and the deep, unpredictable heart of the sea. The world outside of their serene archipelago operated on a very different set of assumptions. By the early 2000s, the global community relied on a complex web of technology to monitor seismic activity, a sophisticated network of sensors and buoys, collectively known as the Deep Ocean Assessment and Reporting of Tsunamis, or DART system, was designed to detect tsunamis. But this technology, while groundbreaking, had its limitations. It was a reactive system, built to confirm an event after it had already begun. The warning signals, the very data points that would eventually confirm the tragedy, were often too late, too slow, or misinterpreted in the chaotic initial moments. On the morning of December 26, 2004, the world was going about its day. Tourists were on the beaches of Thailand and Indonesia. Families were gathering for the holidays, and the Moken were preparing for another day of fishing and diving. At 7:58 a.m. local time, an unimaginable force was unleashed. The seafloor off the coast of Sumatra ruptured along a fault line, a cataclysmic event that registered a magnitude of 9.1 on the Richter scale. It was the third largest earthquake ever recorded by a seismograph. But this signal, this seismic scream, was just the beginning. For the Moken, the initial signal was not a number on a chart or a data point on a screen. It was a feeling, a low, subsonic vibration that traveled through the earth and into the water. An uneasy silence fell over the usually vibrant coastal habitats. The birds stopped singing. The fish disappeared from the shallows, and the sea itself, the very thing that sustained them, began to act strangely. This was the inciting incident. The problem was not a lack of warning signs, but a fundamental disconnect between the signals modern society was built to hear and the signals the Moken were born to listen for. The initial landscape was one of a divided world, one governed by technology and one governed by the timeless wisdom of nature. The impending tragedy would soon reveal which system was truly the more effective, and what vital, unseen clue had been hiding in plain sight. This was a race against time, a quiet crisis unfolding in the remote corners of the world, with two entirely different sets of eyes and ears watching. The stage was set, and the first act of an unimaginable rescue was about to begin. The passage of time often reveals truths that were once obscured. In the immediate aftermath of the tsunami, the Moken's survival was treated as a curiosity, a stroke of luck, or perhaps a supernatural event. The stories of their uncanny escape, initially reported by a handful of journalists and aid workers, were often relegated to footnotes in the larger narrative of global tragedy. But for some, their story was a haunting question that refused to be silenced. How could an entire community, without any warning, flee to the high ground in the critical minutes before the wave struck? What was the signal they received? The prevailing theory among modern scientists was that the Moken had simply felt the earthquake and deduced the rest. But this didn't fully explain the specifics of their reaction. They didn't just feel a tremor. They knew what was coming. This is where the true unseen clue lies, not in a radio frequency, but in the frequency of their collective memory. It was their understanding of the laboon, the wave that eats people. The laboon was not a legend. It was a real historical event etched into their cultural consciousness, a story that served as a blueprint for survival. The real breakthrough came years later, through the relentless work of anthropologists and linguists who spent years documenting Moken oral history. They discovered that the Moken's escape was not an instinctive reaction, but a methodical, pre-planned action based on a series of observations that their culture had taught them to read. The signal they had received was not a single event, but a cascade of subtle, interconnected clues that their culture had taught them to read. The first clue was the unusual behavior of the animals. They saw the shorebirds suddenly take to the sky, not in a panicked flock, but in an organized, purposeful retreat inland. They saw the normally playful dolphins swim out to the deep ocean, far from the coast. And they saw the fish, a resource they relied on, vanish from the shallows. This was the first broadcast on their unique frequency. It was a nonverbal message that screamed, "Something is profoundly wrong." The second clue was even more profound and unsettling: the rapid retreat of the sea itself. The waters, which had always been a constant presence, suddenly began to pull away from the shore, exposing reefs and sea life that had not been seen for generations. For the rest of the world, this was a moment of curious spectacle. Tourists walked onto the exposed beaches, picking up seashells and marveling at the strange sight. But for the Moken, this was the central, blaring alarm. Their stories of the laboon spoke of this exact phenomenon, the sea pulling in a great breath before unleashing its fury. The breakthrough, the realization, was not about discovering a new technology, but about recognizing the validity of an old one. Researchers began to understand that the Moken's oral history was not just a collection of tales, but a sophisticated multi-generational data set. The stories of the laboon were a protocol, a set of instructions for what to do when a particular set of environmental signals were received. The Moken's unseen clue was their own culture, a radio signal transmitted not through the air, but through the deep, enduring channels of human memory and respect for the natural world. This new perspective fundamentally changed how we viewed their survival. It was not luck. It was an act of profound, unwavering knowledge and a testament to human ingenuity in its oldest form. The story of the Moken Sea Gypsies wasn't just a tale of survival. It was a humbling lesson for a modern world that had become deaf to the oldest and most reliable signals of all. The unseen clue had finally been seen, and its message was clear. There are truths that technology cannot always capture, and warnings that only a deep human connection to our world can ever truly receive. The immediate impact of this new understanding was a profound shift in perspective. While the world mourned the immense loss of life, the Moken villages stood as quiet monuments to the power of indigenous knowledge. The devastation that had swallowed coastal communities around them had spared their people, their culture, and their way of life. The story of their survival, once a footnote, became a central case study for the United Nations and other international organizations. The goal was no longer just to build better DART systems, but to understand and integrate what had previously been considered unseen signals into our warning protocols. The consequences of this shift were significant. The Moken story led to new initiatives to empower indigenous communities and integrate their traditional knowledge into modern disaster preparedness plans. It highlighted a critical blind spot in our global systems. Our reliance on technology had made us dismissive of knowledge that was not scientifically validated in a lab or in a data center.
The Moken's resilience was not a passive act of survival, but a powerful, active testament to a profound human connection with the environment. The resolution of this story is not a neat Hollywood ending. The Moken people, like so many indigenous communities, still face immense challenges to their way of life, from climate change and overfishing to forced assimilation. But their story has endured as a powerful lesson. The lingering questions are not about the tsunami itself, but about us. What other unseen signals are we missing? What other truths are hidden in plain sight, dismissed because they don't conform to our technological assumptions? This story is a powerful reminder that human inquiry and resilience take many forms. It reminds us that truth is often woven into the fabric of a culture, not just written in a scientific journal. The pursuit of truth requires us to be humble, to be open to different ways of knowing, and to listen for the voices that are often dismissed as whispers. The Moken story is a beautiful, tragic, and ultimately inspiring chronicle of a community that was prepared for the unthinkable because they never stopped listening to the ancient, unspoken language of the earth. This true story reminds us that some of the most profound lessons in human history are not found in the headlines, but in the quiet, persistent wisdom of those who live in harmony with their world. The heroic rescue of the Moken Sea Gypsies was not about a last-minute miracle, but about a lifetime of listening. What are your thoughts on this incredible story? What other historical events do you believe hold a similar unseen key or a profound lesson about human resilience and knowledge? Share your insights and theories in the comments below. Your perspective matters. If this powerful story resonated with you and you believe in the importance of uncovering hidden truths, please hit the like button. It truly helps us bring more vital stories like this to light. Share this video with someone who appreciates the power of untold histories. And most importantly, subscribe to Twisted Case. Your support fuels our mission to uncover the echoes of the unseen, one incredible story at a time. Thank you for listening.
Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Subscribe for more gripping true crime breakdowns, mysteries, and criminal psychology stories, only on Twisted Case.